Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and very humbled and excited to introduce our next guest. He's the president at EWTN España and member of the board in multinational companies in Europe and America, senior advisor for some of the largest private equity firms globally, and senior advisor for Roland Berger, one of the leading strategic consulting firms. He's also a renowned speaker and author of New Scientific Evidence for the Evidence of God, a book that reached top 5 in Amazon in Spain only 6 months after being published. That's incredible. He's also married and a father of 7. Jose Carlos Gonzalez-Hurtado. Good morning and, well, good afternoon for you, I should say. But welcome to the show, Jose Carlos.
Good afternoon, Keith. I'm so happy to be with you. Thanks a lot for bringing me here.
Absolutely, sir. Now, I have so many questions and so little time, so let's just jump right into it. I'm curious to know, what motivated you to write New Scientific Evidence for the Existence of God?
Well, that is a long answer, Keith. But anyway, the shortest one is, the realization that the most of the young people that leave religious practice, but by far is it is because they think that science and God, they're in conflict, and it's exactly the opposite, which is fantastic. It's fascinating. In the last 50 years, we have more evidences from science that God exists than ever before. And even that, even though 82%, this is the Pew Research data in the U.S., actually, 82% of the millennials that they abandon religious practices because they think that science contradicts God. And it's, as I said, exactly the opposite. That is one of the reasons. The other is because the editor asked me to write the book. So that's the other one.
Well, hey, there's motivation there. You mentioned the study about millennials kind of leaving the faith. And that's all in the United States. Is that kind of the same situation? What's happening in Spain with the young people?
It's the same situation in all the Western world. It's for whatever fascinating reason. There is a myth that the majority of scientists are atheists or they're agnostics, which is exactly the opposite. I keep saying this piece of data, while less than 5% of the Nobel Prizes in the last 100 years, kid,
wow,
less than 5% of the physics and chemistry Nobel Prizes, they consider themselves atheists. 35% of the literature Nobel Prizes, they consider themselves atheists. So in reality, being atheist or non-believing in God is not a scientific approach to life. It's actually more of a, philosophy or a non-scientist. So that is the truth of the truth of the matter is that the science brings you to God. It has always been like that. And as I said, in the last generation, last 50 years, more than ever.
Yeah. What's interesting, too, is that you were in a couple videos on a podcast that went viral with like millions of views on kind of the topic, some of the questions that are asked by these young individuals. And I think one was about the Big Bang Theory. Did you ever expect those videos to get that much audience?
No, it's actually definitely not. And not even, the book in Spain is in the 5th edition. So this video that you're talking, it actually reached more than 50 million visits in TikTok, in, YouTube, and God knows what. Truth is that the guy that was interviewing me, he was an atheist before the interview. He's no longer, I have to say, which is really good. I mean, one of the things that I'm really surprised is that I received tons of letters, but really, Keith, tons of letters of people that are saying, hey, I didn't know the things that you're saying in the book. With the things that you're saying in the book, which I have, checked and it's true, I can no longer be an atheist. I really have, dozens of people that are sending me letters or thanking me because of that. And also in the lectures. So I give lectures all around the country and actually in the US, I will. And it is true that in many cases, and I'm not exaggerating, in many cases, there's typically a young guy, 20s something, coming forward and say, hey, I didn't know what you're saying about the Big Bang. I didn't know what you're saying about the second law of thermodynamics. I didn't know what you say about mathematics. I didn't know what you say about the human genome. Now, if that is true, necessarily there is a God. And I say, yeah, that's exactly what the science is saying. Necessarily there is a God. And so it's funny, they convert, but easily. It's more difficult with older people. I have to say, people of my age, I'm older than you, Keith, and the people like my generation, we are a little bit more stubborn, I would say.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Is it just because old habits die hard, or what do you think the reason is for that?
I thought about that. One of the reasons I think is that people of my generation, our priority when we are in an argument or in a discussion is, I want to be right. Mm-hmm. And the younger people, what they want is they want the truth. So it's like, listen, being right is a secondary objective when they engage in a conversation. Well, many people, I wouldn't say everybody, because, I have also people that have converted of my generation, but people of my age, they tend to think, hey, I already learned it all. I'm not in an age of learning something new. What you are telling me is something new. It doesn't fit with my age. I'm not learning. I am already in the mood of developing. And I think that is, there are some videos in YouTube. Literally, Keith, I get in Barcelona, in north of Spain, and I go into the streets and I talk to young people, and 5 minutes later, it's in YouTube and you can see it. 5 minutes later, they say, well, at the beginning they say, well, no, I'm an atheist, God doesn't exist, blah, 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 blah. And then, 5 minutes later, they say, well, you know what, with everything that you have told me, I must believe in God. And they say it on camera and with no remorse and with no ego, if you want. Now, I have done this same exercise with, not so young people.
Right.
And one of the guys ended up screaming at me and say, no, you are not going to convince me. You're not going to. I say, okay, fine. So I think that is, is the young people, they consider, hey, I'm learning. This thing that you are telling me is new to me. With these bits of information, I'm changing my point of view. Older people, they tend to say, hey, you know what? In reality, in this argument, what I want to come out is being right, not being right, not being convinced, if you want.
Right. And I don't know if it's like this in Spain, but, as I continue to get older, sometimes there's cynicism that pulls up and I have to okay, I got to stop being so cynic. And I think maybe people, as they go through their life, a lot of these bad things that are happening, and so they become cynics. I don't know. That's very interesting, though. But back to your book, with the last few moments we have, obviously you're discussing empirical evidence for God in the book. Within the last 3 minutes or so, could you maybe highlight some of the scientific discoveries or arguments that point toward the existence of God?
Yeah, I call them the new 5 ways. So cosmology and physics. The Big Bang theory actually demonstrates that the universe had a starting point. That necessarily brings you to there is a creator. The second law of thermodynamics, which actually brings you to, hey, the universe will have an end. That also brings you to the existence of God. Interestingly, both guys that discovered, if you want, these theories, they were Catholics. One of them was a Catholic priest. In mathematics, Kurt Gödel, which is probably the best mathematician in the world, he poses the incompletitude theorem, which is complicated, but I explain it, for everybody in the book. It actually demonstrates that if you want to have science that is complete and consistent, there must be a God. In biology, the human genome and the ADN, so the DNA for you, DNA in English, ADN in Spanish, that definitely also brings you to the necessity of God. And there are many, many more. Okay, in the book you have, as I said, chapter on physics, cosmology, biology, chemistry, and mathematics.
Interesting. Yeah, I always kind of laugh when people are surprised, younger people, when I say, yeah, the Big Bang Theory, you know that? Yeah, it was developed by a Catholic priest. And they're usually shocked, what? That doesn't make, how is that? And then that just opens up this can of worms. Kind of like you were saying, they just start oh, it's unlayering this particular ideology as an atheist, and it's unraveling altogether. And so it's very interesting to hear about your experience and the young people over there. But I guess before we head on out, what message would you like to give our listeners as they start their day?
Well, that's probably the most difficult question you've asked me. It's like, but anyway, I mean, like, I was listening to you about Santa Rita de Casia. I mean, about yesterday, and the answer of yesterday's question. Santa Rita is the patroness of the difficult deeds, if you want, the difficult things. Okay, so if you have a difficult thing in your house, in your family, somebody that, for example, I learned now lately, there are people that are abandoning the church, your children, your grandchildren, your husband, or your wife, then, it's good to talk to Santa Rita and ask her for that. If you read the history and the life of Santa Rita, she was a married woman at the beginning, before becoming a nun, and she's very good delivering on difficult tasks.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely we'll have to look into more of her story, and I recommend those that are listening do the same. And we'll follow more of that. Now, your book, New Scientific Evidence for the Existence of God, is there an English translation at all?
Yeah, there is an English translation. You can find it in, I guess, everywhere in Amazon or whatever. It has been translated. So it's after 6 months in Spain, it was translated into English. It's been translated into Portuguese as we talk, and we are considering translation into Polish. But today you can actually have it in English in the U.S. everywhere, I guess.
Awesome. We'll have to have that book on for our daily Catholic trivia as a prize. My goodness. Thank you so much, Jose Carlos Gonzalez-Hurtado, for joining us this morning. Real pleasure in joining us. We can find, obviously, EWTN.es. But that's our show for this morning. Yeah, Morning Joy is officially kind of over here. There's two things I always like to bring up, though. If you're staying for the Holy Mass, you're going to be listening to the Holy Mass, please pray for all of us. We ask that of you. Otherwise, our after-show clubhouse, we're going to be kind of expanding on that new study that was just going out on Catholic News Agency about more than 2/3 of U.S. Catholics believe the Eucharist is truly Jesus. It's an interesting topic. We're going to talk all about that, expand upon that. Search Morning Joy on all of the social medias. You'll find us. But if this is us parting ways, God bless. Make it a joyful day. See ya.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.